welcome to the show. Today's guest did his apprenticeship as a brewer in Germany, and his passion for the brewing industry has taken him abroad as far as Namibia, New Zealand, South Africa and Kenya. Now back in Germany, Sebastian Meyer is ensuring that locals in his medieval hometown in Middle Franconia in Bavaria once again have a local beer that they can be proud of. My name is Holger Meyer, and this is BeerWorld. Sebastian Meyer, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Holger.
It's nice to catch you in South Africa. You have lived here before, and we've obviously met you in South Africa, but you're here on a visit.
Yes, I just decided now to come during the powwow also, and I had some stuff to sort out here in Cape Town, and then I aligned everything nicely up so that it overlaps with the powwow, so I can do everything like together with a nice event where I meet a lot of people also, which was great. I mean, the African beer cups also.
Yeah, it's amazing this community that we've got in South Africa.
No, I agree, and I remember also when the powwow started, and then like to see something growing and then having such a nice size of an event. Like we also a lot of international people come and recognize the event as they want to be. That's really great thing to see, because there was, I think, also from this Pete Salzberg was there. He was quite amazing. I found his story was quite good. Also, of course, the Spike Bukowski from Terrapin and the other international ones also were quite interesting.
Okay. Start telling us a little bit about your background. Where are you from and where did you grow up?
Originally, I'm from Middle Franconia. So in Franconia, it's northern Bavaria. And that's where I did my apprenticeship as a brewer from 1998 to 2001 in a place called the Leuchtturm, or like Lighthouse. The lake was not next, maybe a kilometer away, but he liked the idea of calling it the Leuchtturm, Lighthouse. So that's why a lot of people came from the north and they were astonished, how can be a lighthouse be there in the middle of Bavaria? There's no really big lake around. By that time, like it was one of the popularest pub breweries there in the Middle Franconia area. So Nuremberg counts to Middle Franconia. So we had a huge impact. I think it did about 1,500 hectoliters per year.
Okay.
On a 15 hectoliter Kasper Schulz kit, and it was the boss and myself. So I used to brew a lot, and we didn't filter, but we did all the bottling by hand and stuff. So it was quite nice because it was also working very independently and on a short hierarchy. That was quite good. So everything I learned in the school, in the practical, I could utilize the next week in the brewery itself, which made it really nice. So I really enjoyed this dual system. So when I did a brewery tour the week before, which what I learned in school, so I told everybody the new stuff.
Yeah. And how long was the apprenticeship?
Was it 3 years? I could have gone for a half a year shorter, but then I decided I didn't want to rush, and I went for a whole three years.
Okay. And what happened after that?
Yeah, I thought I get a nice bursary and some good money out of it, but that so then I did my matric in Germany. You could do it also after, not only in school, you could do it also after you did the apprenticeship. I did in the agricultural school in Triesdorf, Weinstefan.
Yeah.
There was a thing, a diplom brewmaster in Weinstefan. I wanted to do that, and that was not available. And yeah, due to the fact that my father passed away like 4 or 5 years earlier, and yeah, I supported also my family a bit with my little income I got through the government funding there. So I decided not to go so far, because Munich by then already also was an expensive place.
Yeah. So
I ended up studying environmental protection there in Weinstefan Triesdorf, which was the closest one holding the name Weinstefan to my home. It was about 22 kilometers, so I could live at home, and then I could also travel with another guy from the village there. It was okay, but like in the end, that was not what I wanted to do. So then after 2 years, I quit. I started again as a brewer. I tried to apply now for these loans for the Chamber of Craft, for this bursary. There was not much, but I thought maybe I could utilize it. But then by that time, that ran already out. By that time, I also changed from the Schneider Brauerei in Weißenburg. I left to the Oettinger Brauerei. Oettinger is the biggest brewing concern in Germany. I think nowadays it has 4 big branches in Braunschweig, Gotha, and Mönchengladbach, and Oettingen. It's also 20 kilometers to my place. So this one happened everything like in a radius of, I would say, like 25 kilometers maximum, because there's so many breweries and different. The LGA school was in Munich. I had to drive there 120 kilometers, but that was always Saturdays. But the rest, my work life and my other education was always there around Weißenburg, Gunzenhausen, Ansbach, Donauwörth, where all these places are close to my place.
Oettinger, you said, is the biggest brewing concern in Germany. It makes what we call the supermarket beer, I guess, eh? Is that a big market in Germany?
I think they are the biggest, So volume-wise, they are the biggest. Profit-wise, probably not, because there's a cut in the price entry level, so their margin is also very, very low, I would say. But yeah, it's big in Germany because people appreciate value for money, and the product is also quite good, I would say, because you can't brew bad beer these days. Also, I mean, they have to have the level of quality there, and they have a big variety. Also, there's their soft drinks. I mean, they also have a big variety of their lemonade called Glorietta, from something in Germany. It's very popular. It's similar to what we call a Spezi. It's a cola mix. It's like a mezzo mix from Coca-Cola, but that is one of the best-selling carbonated soft drinks in Germany. They are quite big also with them. Almost, it appears to me almost that they might make more money out of the CSTs than from the beer, because you just mix the CST. You don't have to store it and filter it. The workload is much less.
Yeah, and you probably don't have to pay as much tax.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah.
You worked there for 2 years.
Also for 2 years. So the Schneiderbräu Weißenburg was really. It was in Germany. We have also so many medieval cities. It was really in the middle of the town, and everything was old. So the mill by that time was already, but he's still running with the mill, from I think model 1910 or something, 1912. The mill was built, so it's still operational. And I'm not sure that the English word for Kirchweih, but for the Kirchweih, he still brews beer on that equipment and everything in the middle of the old town. The other stuff he stopped, because this Schneider, Mr. Schneider, he's also the founder, or he reinvented the Leipziger Gose, the Leipziger Bahnhof. And on a later stage, he focused more on brewing there in Leipzig. Okay,
I worked in Leipzig for a while when I was in Germany in the 90s, I think.
I think he opened this one 1999, 2000. This the Leipziger Bahnhof. It's a huge success.
Yeah, and it's not the Schneiderbrau from Munich.
It's not der Schneiderbrau Kelheim, it's Schneiderbrau Weißenburg. They are also not related.
Yeah, the one in Munich is obviously well known.
Very famous, yeah. But look, I mean, I know this one also. They used to have in the village I grew up, they had a pub. My neighbor next to it had a pub, and they used to have this beer all along. So I know it also as a child. I know the other one first, than the Schneider Kelheim.
Okay. Yeah, okay. And maybe talk about the beer culture in that specific region, because it's obviously not. We only hear about Munich and what happens in there, but this is a little bit more rural.
Yeah, and it's not like the Franconian Swiss, where the breweries are not much smaller. Unfortunately, I must say, like the last couple of years, a few guys also pulled out, a few closed, and their beer is only manufactured or made by somebody else nearby. But yeah, when I grew up, when I was there like 20 years ago, there was still, I think we had about 16 or 18 breweries around, and now it's about 12 in this radius. Every place normally has his favorite beer. You go there, like these people like only their particular local beer. Then 5 to 10 kilometers to the next place, the next guys, like they only like this beer, because and that's how it goes. The only thing which is a bit over regional is the Weiss beer. Mm. From there we have also it's very close to us. It's called the Gutmann Weizen. But with wheat beer or Weiss beer, it's the same. Like you have this one area, and they are the champions there. You go 20, 30 kilometers further, and then they already don't recognize it as a. They know it, but they want something else. They want their Weiss beer. Yeah. And we have also a lot of very good Weiss beer breweries. Imagine how this Gutmann is there. Then the Schneider Kelheim, of course, is also there. Then we have the Bayreuther, the Meiselweiss is also not that far. Yeah. But they are not so strong with us, Like we get it, but it's not like the people go crazy for it, because it's where I'm from. People really old-fashioned Weiss beer drinker love their Gutmann. And some others, of course, smaller, but good one is overall the number one. But at the moment, what I also see, is there's a decline in Weissbier somehow for the last 2 to 3 years, which is unusual. Normally, people love their Weissbier, and now you have this old-fashioned Weissbier drinker, always drink a Weiss. But now that also like the Schneider Kelheim, they also started to have now a Helles.
Yeah.
Helles has come as the trendy, fashionable beer. Also, Erdinger Weissbier also makes now the Stifts Helles, I think, Erdinger Stiftsbräu, and then Helles is their new brand, which they want to establish to overcome this gap.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
I was at Clarence on the weekend, and I was talking to the guys and telling them that Helles is the fastest growing category in Germany now.
Is it? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You can also see it over regional. Like a couple of years back, there was the Krombacher Hefeweizen and everything. But I think now the Krombacher, when I'm not mistaken, they have there's this little bottles called the Pülliken Helles. Pülliken is for a little bottle in Germany.
Okay.
In this side of Germany, and they also advertise it all over, and you see it really everywhere, this Pülliken. The little brewery I run, I must say also, like for us, the Helles is more than expected. I thought it will everything like a third. I used the data for the research from the private breweries from Bavaria, which show what is the distribution, how many beer will is sold as Weissbier and as Pilsner, Helles or export. And I thought, okay, I will be a third, but it's more like 60% Helles, and then the other two, well, maybe a third, yeah, but not as equal balanced. And then we stopped at the Oettinger, and I think the Oettinger business model, because it's low end, what they do, this guy, the Mr. Kolmar, what he always started when he founded the brewery, he always then started the self-distribution. So every supermarket can buy his. He doesn't have a distributor in between.
Yeah.
So from this place in Oettingen with their own trucks, like they drive everything out themselves. Well, that's then the trucks are also then their ambassadors, like when you see this. So they don't make advertisement, but the trucks advertise the beer for them.
Yeah, and just to explain the supermarkets a little bit in Germany, it's also the supermarkets are very, very powerful and very, very, very cheap.
Yeah, and it is also, I think it started also in the late 70s with the supermarkets, that you build the supermarkets on a green field with a big parking and stuff, and then the people can come in and buy everything, and they of course they use their buying power also to bring down the price. And my opinion is that the Kolmar family, it always been a private owned company. So they were also like humble to say, and they never needed to make this like the bookkeepers, this certain amount of margin you satisfy the shareholders. So they could run with it, and the guy, he grew it from the Günther Kolmar, who passed away a couple of years. He grew it then from 3,000 hectoliters when he did his studies in Weinstefan, and he studied economics afterward. He joined his father in the business, and from his lifetime, he made it from a small regional brewery, which was normally supposed to close at a certain stage. They grew it to the biggest brewing concern, brewing company in Germany.
Yeah. Do they also do draft beer, or is it mainly the bottles?
Draft beer you get, but it's more like from the old days when they still had some pubs in the region around Oettingen, but they don't do a massive amount of draft beer nationwide or anything. There is definitely, but it's not their biggest part of operation. But you can get draft beer, but it's not. Then it's also probably the same price as you buy it from somewhere else, because their advantage was always to run these big machines 24/7. And
do they do house brands, or is it their brand that they sell into the supermarket?
I would say like to 90% it's house brand. It's their house brand Oettinger, but there's some other brands also which they do for. There's one company in Germany called Netto. I know that they still do the one for Netto called Falkenfelser, but that is for somebody who does not know. He will not see it, he will believe that it's a different brand or anything. But, the coding and the codes, how the coder works. and then you can see it. I mean, I could tell it back in the days. I can still tell it that it's still the same, even if I haven't been there for a while. So, but that hasn't changed over the years, so far as I can see it in the market when I have a look. And of course, what they do in cans, they have a big canning operation, and there they go for the whole lot of Europe in export. So if somebody comes from Italy, from Greece, or wherever, and says he wants a house brand in Germany brewed, then that's what they do. They call it whatever the name you give them, and then label, and then they contract, package it for you, and then fill it for you up in cans. That's very big. And the cans also came up again in Germany, so that the cans are really busy again.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the returnable bottles. Did Oettinger sell returnable bottles? The Euro bottle?
Yeah, that is the most volume goes into the returnable bottles. That is, I think, their biggest seller. I would say like maybe 3/4 of the business goes into returnables, and then the rest might be can. But definitely about three-quarters from what I experienced. They have like one canning line. The biggest canning lines you can get. It's about 80,000 cans per hour. And then I think they have 4 other returnable bottle lines. And that's only in Oettingen. That's elsewhere they also do one-way glass, and stuff. But then they diversified their breweries a bit. I think the one in Braunschweig does the PET bottle. The other one does one-way glass bottle. So that's where they split a bit.
Is PET for export?
It's also for the local market.
Okay.
In the supermarkets, you find PET bottles. That's also there.
Explain the concept of the Euro bottle to us. The way I understand it is that it's a standard bottle that all the brewers can use interchangeably, and it's a returnable bottle.
So the Euro bottle is actually the old bottle. So what means old is like in the I think it was even introduced in the 60s or somewhere. Is the small, the short stubby one. And this one before, the breweries used to have swing top bottles and mostly branded with their name. And then they joined forces, and then they introduced this one bottle which everybody can use. And you don't have to the issues with the branding, and it's not so special specialized for the brewery. So that was in the 60s, and then what nowadays is used also for Oettinger and for other bigger breweries. This bottle is called the NRW bottle, the North Rhine-Westphalia bottle, NRW bottle. And this one was introduced predominantly by the company called Warsteiner in the late 80s. And it became so popular that other breweries also jumped on it. For example, Oettinger also has it, Paulaner has it, but Paulaner introduced also now, because this Helles and this traditional kind of like stubby Euro bottles are so fashionable, that Paulaner even introduced now shorter crates and also the old Euro bottle again.
Okay.
And yeah, that is the advantage. But now also over the years, the bigger breweries, they then come up with branded bottles, like Radeberger and other breweries. So then, of course, fits in all the crates. And then you have a big issue later on to sort all the returnables, because then it becomes a mess. If then the branded returnables, you get a crate with 10 different bottles, and have to go again back to 10 different special places. But it unfortunately happens.
And how does the recycling or the returning happen?
I think there's a few big players, and then the bigger places, they have then, like Oettinger, we had on a line with 60,000 people, we had about 7 operators and 2 people who were on the line sorting out before the bottle. So we had pre-sorting, and then later on everything went on a pallet and went to the specialist, who then divided everything for the other guys, like the other big breweries who have the branded bottles.
Okay, and what years were you working in Oettinger?
I started on a labeler, and then half a year later was 3/4 of a, because then they decided already the news that they bought two bottling lines, and then I became a shift leader on this new bottling line with a KHS filler and a Cronus labeler for 60,000 bottles per hour, which was quite big. It was quite interesting also, for these high-speed lines until everything is up and running and stuff. So it was quite a challenging and interesting time also, to see until everything runs smoothly there. And then when you see 60,000 bottles per hour returnables running in circles, that's quite impressive.
Okay, and after that you worked.
With Namibian breweries. So that was by that time I worked with Oettinger, and I did his studies as a biotechnician for the LGA, Landesgewerbeanstalt there in Munich. So I went all the Saturdays for the studies, and then during the week I normally worked. Then there's the international newspaper BeerWorld International, or no, the normal BeerWorld, and then I saw a job advertised there with Namibian breweries. Yeah, and for some reason I applied for the job and I got it. And that's when, after I finished my exam on the LGA, the openings, then it was the job started at the Namibian breweries. The opening was for August the same year. So I finished in July and I started in August. There was like, I think 5 or 6 Namibian apprentice brewers. So the concept was like, for these 3 years where the contract was lasting, we should also come and train them in Namibia because the Namibians, they went to Germany to do the German trade certificate as a brewer. So the idea was always to get a German, to train them also on the German system, and then help them also to become the certified brewer in Germany, which was successful. I think all of them passed later on, and we put a lot of effort in. Also Namibian breweries, and Christian Müller by that time was the Lehrmeister, we call it, the teacher, master for the apprentice. Yeah, and that was really, I think, also interesting times in Namibia.
Yeah, it must be a lovely place to work.
Yeah, and it's also, I would say, interesting, because it's the culture is also completely different. Like in Oettinger, was everything based on a German lean manufacturing. In Namibia also, they're also quite lean when it comes down to the manufacturing, but of course the way they do things is different than in Germany.
But it's still got a German culture.
Yeah, definitely. Look, there was very much German culture, but still, you do it there and you do it in a different way than in Germany.
Yeah.
Like everything, like for the malt and stuff, until the malt arrives in Namibia, your planning is much more intense than like in Germany. You're like, okay, I need malt. It can come within a week from anywhere, which is not the case. So you always have to plan and think more ahead.
Yeah. And what was your job there in Namibia?
I was as a brewery operator, and I was in the brew house, also with the apprentice brewers, and we taught them how to make the beer. And then also we went to the Citibank brewery for when they started to brew the Windhoek draft in Citibank. That's when I also came to Citibank, when the place was I think 3 or 4 months in operation. So it was also super interesting to see such a nice operation running, because that brewery was really, by that time, I think state of the art. It's still state of the art probably, but it was everything brand new. It was really amazing to see that what you can do, like in terms of brew house, like I think that the place on top there is on marble, we have a marble floor in the brew house and stuff, which is not everywhere in the world the same.
Was the Swakop brewery closed by then?
Was already closed. I think they closed 2006 or 7, if I'm not mistaken. I was here 2009, so it was not running. It was a depot, but not a brewery.
Okay, but you made all the beers in Windhoek then and in Citibank? Yeah,
in Citibank, only the Windhoek draft in the beginning, and I was there where I still did. Later on, other guys came, and then I think they extended the range, but it was the Windhoek draft in the beginning there.
And did you also get to travel to their different operations in the north and at the coast?
No, I didn't. I didn't come to any of the depots from Namibia Brewery. I only was in the brewery in Windhoek and then in Citibank.
Yeah. Okay. And you spent 3 years there?
3 years, yeah. And it was really, it was a good time because, I think we did about 2.2 million hectoliters on this 450 hectoliter brew house. So in summertime, we were meshing in all the time, meshing. It was quite intense, but was good,
Yeah.
So also, New Year's, there were always somebody on shift and somebody in the brew house, in production, filtering, whatever was needed to get this more volumes done. Because everything was running there, everything came to Namibia and then was shipped down to South Africa, like all the bottles and stuff. And it was a massive logistical operation. It was very interesting to see all the trucks always coming up and down.
Interesting for me is that you then didn't go back to Germany, but you carried on and worked. You found a job in New Zealand.
In the beginning, I thought I would like a job in Australia. So I didn't have much context or anything. I looked online. I had the visa. I looked at seek.co.au, and there was nothing which really suited me. And then there's a button for New Zealand, so I changed the search to New Zealand, and there came something up with independent liquors. And yeah, we had the interview and stuff. So the first question was, okay, I have a visa for New Zealand, for Australia. Do I need a different one for New Zealand? Because I was oblivious to it. Yeah, and then the visa for New Zealand, I managed myself, I think, in 3 days, from application until it was issued, because I had all the other certificates for Australia already, which then I just had to hand over again, which was not a big problem. And then, then I got the jobs there. And by them, it's still a very interesting place. It was just bought over by Aschai. So they still did run a Carlsberg license there and did Holsten beer from Germany there. And Kingfisher Strong, that was before Heineken bought the Indian company's Kingfisher. So we did Kingfisher Strong there. Like a lot of different beers, international brands also. It was really then we did also a craft beer range, and we did the lower entry market level, like in the medium to high, and they were really diverse in the amounts of drinks and also spirits. What they did in the blending units, they did also an incredible amount of different spirits, which was really like quite interesting to see.
Yeah, and did you have to work with those factories?
No, the blending was just behind the brewing operations. Yeah. And blending, I mean, what they did there was like I'd never worked with them because I was always fully tied up in the brewery, and they had the new filter and stuff, and there were other operations. But look, they did something like what is it called, the Baileys? Like they did something with milk powder. They imported tequila from Mexico and made some spirit drinks with Mexico. So you could see always what they do and how they do it. But I never was personally one of the blenders. I've always stayed with the brewery.
Yeah, it is a very interesting business. It was started by a guy, and he really built this massive business, which I guess he in the end sold to Asahi, or his family sold it once he'd passed away.
No, it's his family. The guy was called Michael Ursek.
Yeah,
and he was really like I think a very inspirational person. I mean, when you read his history, he died unfortunately, I think somewhere around 2005. Not sure the exact date now. He had a helicopter and he crashed it together with the CEO by Walsh. By that time, he crashed it into a mountain, I think, and that's how he passed. And then his wife took over, and she sold it to a private equity, and then the private equity bought it sold it to Aschai.
Yeah.
And this Michael Ursek really was inspirational. I mean, also he was very. You listen to the guys on the shop floor who used to know him, so the guy was like, if somebody needed money for a loan to buy a house, like he always helped them. And when he died, when he crashed, he gave, I'm not sure about how many, was maybe 10,000 or more New Zealand dollar for every year the guys worked with him. In his last will, there was, and nobody knew that he will die, like it was a complete accident. But everybody got a share from the company who stayed with him for so and so many years, was equal separated, which was quite also impressive, I think.
And what is the beer culture like there compared to in South Africa, if you compare New Zealand to South Africa? Or even Bavaria?
I think in New Zealand, like it's really the price structure is very high. I think like in New Zealand, the people, they're ready to fork out also even more money for a good craft beer. That's why they use also all of their own New Zealand hops. They're very proud of their own New Zealand ingredients and privately owned New Zealand craft beers. And I'm not sure if it's like over 120 now or 130. I mean, the place just exploded when it came to craft beers, But there's a good margin made. So I can imagine if the guys have the right concept with a little bit of a pub and some distribution, that the market is big enough for everyone there.
Okay.
And then New Zealand is really, they love their craft beer. I mean, New Zealand is a beer drinking country. Also wine, but beer is also very strong.
Yeah. And in that time, did you manage to visit Australia, or did you not get there?
I stopped over a few times I flew with, I think, Emirates or someone, and then they always stop over once, like in Brisbane, Sydney, or Melbourne. And then I went out for a few days always and then checked it out. Yeah, Australia is also a nice place, but yeah, by the time I had a job in New Zealand, and I think I was actually quite fine.
Yeah, okay. And you didn't stay there that long?
Yeah, only almost 2 years, because then it was, look, I wanted to then also get a job as a brewmaster, and then I had a technician. I'm still a biotechnician, but it's from the LGA from my studies. But by the time, I didn't have the brewmaster, and it was always like feeling, look, I brought the knowledge and stuff, but I didn't get the position, so that's when we kind of like agreed that I might come back, but then it never happened also. And then I must say I'm very happy that I got this job opportunities and also with Dematec to come to Cape Town straight after I was finished with the studies in Germany.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Dematec and what they do.
Dematec is founded by Dilicio Mario, and he used to be the sole sale agent for Krones in Africa. And then later on now, I think almost 10 years ago, it started when Krones wanted to run everything by themselves. So he kind of like diversified his business. And you can get now from raw material to equipment to consumables, anything from him, And then I think he's very big also within Africa. So other African places like Ethiopia and West Africa and also East Africa, he does a lot of business. And the main H2 is based in Cape Town, where his family settled after they came, I think, somewhere in the early 90s from Zimbabwe. He used to work in Zimbabwe first with the family, and then they came down to South Africa. And ever since he ran the business for Krones and Steinecker and yeah.
Sebastian, tell us about Krones, because Krones must be the biggest manufacturer of equipment in the world.
I think the biggest one for, if you put it particularly, the biggest one for the bottle filling equipment.
Okay.
And then it's split a bit. There's others like there's CDL, for example, but they do a lot of the cardboard boxes, the milk in the cardboard and stuff. So it's really then depends how you split it. But for returnable glass, for beer, for beverage, CSD, Krones is definitely the world market leader with quite ahead of others, which maybe have similar amounts of employees, but then split differently. I think Chia, for example, they do a lot in the milk industry, past homogenization of milk, and also this equipment, which is Krones is not so strong there.
Yeah. And when in 2017, I met you in Munich at DrinkTech. And
that was an amazing show. Hey?
Yeah, and you've got all these halls, and there's so many different companies, but then there's one hall which is just Krones.
I think that's what they do. The Krones, they put a lot of emphasis always on their exhibitions, and they always bring the latest innovations out when the exhibitions are. So there was this the different bottle fillers, the one which could fill every valve, and I think the seconds were like the half of the seconds. So they bring out a lot of new inventions all the time on the exhibitions, and also put a lot of emphasis on the customer experience, that they can see really what they call themselves the house of Krones.
Yeah, and then you got me an invite into the little. It felt like an Oktoberfest, like one of the halls at the Oktoberfest. The difference was that everything was obviously paid for by Krones, but that was fantastic. We also ran into Jörg Finkeldey and a whole lot of other brewers from around the world. It was like a gathering of all the brewers, and everybody knew each other. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I think that is also very important always when you have such a big exhibition. That's also, I think, what Krones puts a lot of emphasis on, that you have a good hospitality, because these exhibitions are the place where you meet people, all the people, and that is actually the nice thing also. Then you see people who you didn't meet for like maybe 4 or 5 years, and then there again, and you can always chat with someone, because there's so many things happening in the meantime, and the brewing industry is quite if you know your friends and your people, you have good contacts, and there's always something to chat about.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I want you to tell us a little bit more about what you did at Dematec when you were in Cape Town.
So I was in the office they called me officially the brewmaster, but I would say I would like sales support, project support, and also like product support if the people needed help on any particular application or products, like the malts, the hops, the yeasts. And also cleaning, we did some good stuff on helping the people out who run into problems with their cleaning regimes and stuff. And also project support in general. So also acquiring new customers and sales support. So I went also quite a lot into Africa. We chased opportunities, I went there one time. I think Jörg Finkelday also worked there before, like on this brewery there in Luanda, and I think the first time in my life I ordered a cat to eat, but it was an accident. And then we went to other places, like also Mario has still his offices there in Ethiopia, for example. So I went also to Ethiopia. We also tried to sell raw materials there, and also, of course, you have to get in contact with the people that they recognize you as a supplier for the craft industry, I think, which is now really taken into fruition when you see Dimatec as a supplier and also BevPlus. When we went there and we met a lot of people, we also helped to, in the early startup phase, people also have a lot of questions in terms of consulting, like how they want to do it, what they want to do, and then to buy the right equipment. And I think also there's now a lot of good things happened over the years.
Yeah.
Also in terms of craft breweries in other parts of Africa.
Okay. Tell us about those. Did you work with any?
No, I think there was the Big Five was already there in Kenya. That was one of the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was other operations. But it was always, I think, more to meet the people and stuff. All of them were pretty much in their startup phase.
Mm. Was Mario also? He's also the agent for Kasper Schulz.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he has. I think in Ethiopia he runs also a hotel, and there he already has. I think since 20 years almost, he has a Kasper Schulz plant in Addis Ababa in the place called Biergarten Inn, and that's where over 20 years he already brews on a Kasper Schulz brewery with his Ethiopian partners. He makes German beer there.
Okay, and is Kasper Schulz the brew house that people like Jack Black and Darling use?
Yeah, that is the equipment they use, and it's
Okay.
I mean, it's high-end manufactured. It's a very good quality, and it comes from Bamberg, which is also in Franconia, Upper Franconia, and of course, like with all the small breweries there, like they have this years and years of experience, and then also make very nice equipment, which also brings you a very good word and everything, like for lautering and stuff. So that's really the advantage.
And it's an old family brewery. I see that the CEO is now the 10th generation family member to run that business.
Yeah, I mean, that's also quite impressive. Hey, I mean, you only can do it with a lot of dedication.
Yeah. How far was your hometown from Bamberg?
It's about 150 kilometers.
Okay.
But it's quite interesting, because I would say when I go to Bamberg, the people speak more similar dialect than I do myself. So, but if I go south, I have 20 kilometers about, then I go into the area where the Upper Bavaria is, so the people speak Bavarian, and Oettingen is the Bayerischer Schwaben, Suabia. So they speak Schwäbisch, So one time I went to Oettingen to work, and I came 20 kilometers from the east, and he came 20 kilometers from the west, and he told me something, and at one stage I told him, please tell it to me in German. I can't understand what you're saying.
Is there a lot of contact with Bamberg and the brewers there, or have you spent a lot of time there?
No, but I met some of the, I still have some friends from the installation teams and stuff, and also from the sales people. So the one guy, Dieter Pollock, when I had a question about, when I run my own little brewery in this place on the village, so I wanted to fine tune my energy consumption. So I asked Dieter, what would be the average kilowatt per hectoliter, to see where I can go, if I'm okay or if I'm, and he always is then willing to help and ask me how I'm doing. And in my current job, actually, we have some tanks from Kasper Schulz there, because they bought a company called Hinke, and this is an Austrian company, and they sold it to a company called Zeta, and Zeta then installing them at the site where I'm working right now.
Mm. Yeah, when I come and visit you, I also need to do a little trip to Bamberg.
Yeah, we make a plan then, sure, definitely.
Okay.
And I mean, there's some nice breweries also there, there's some newer ones, and not only the old ones, I think there's 2-3 new ones opened also in the old town inside there, which are all of them very nice, and people are very friendly, happy to welcome people. That's always good then. So it's really, I went last year in July, I went with me and my friend, we just jumped on the train and we just went there for Sunday to have some beers and stroll around the city, which is always a trip worth.
Yeah. And then, I mean, during this 3 years in Cape Town, you got quite involved with the craft brewing community. Was that through Bev Plus?
I think both. I mean, I think DMATEF and through Bev Plus.
Okay.
It really depends, like the bigger projects we did always through DMATEC, but then when it came to the raw material, like the hops, malt and yeast, that was always with Bev Plus support.
And when did they start Bev Plus?
I think it must be in 2017, I think. Maybe earlier, but I joined 2018. Oh, what? No, man. 2014, I think. And then I joined 2015. 2018, okay. I was already in Kenya.
Yeah. Okay, so after your stint at DMATEC, you then went to work for Krones themselves.
Yeah, so the thing was like in 2018, then the contract with DMATEC and Krones was kind of like finished, over. So then Mario kept some customers, but the general contract as it was before, when DMATEC is the sole sales agent, that stopped. And then there was the question, like if I wanted to join Krones, then I took on the challenge, and then I decided also to join Krones, and I got a job offer for Krones East Africa as a brewing field service engineer. And they had a new project with the Diageo brewery there in Kisumu, which was about, I think 300 kilometers 20 kilometers west of Nairobi on the Lake Victoria, and a 1 million hectoliter 100% sorghum beer plant. Mm-hmm. It was super interesting then for me.
Okay. So you spoke about the big five in Kenya. What else is happening? Is it all it's all returnable bottles there, or what is the market?
I think the big five normally he has the biggest turnover over his pub in his pub, the draft. And I think the other ones, there's one called Sierra. He also does, I think, a lot of pub business in drafts on the coast. He sends a lot down to the coast. But it's more returnable bottles to one-way bottles. But, like the returnable bottles is a big challenge. So for me in Germany now, what I decided, I had a little bottle washer, but now I decided I bring everything to a neighboring brewery, wash it there, and then bring the empty wash crates back, just rinse it, and then I will be fine, because the bottle washing is a mission on its own, hey?
Yeah. Is it all automated at your neighbor?
It's a big, I think 50,000. Yeah, it's really a big brewery, and he did a fair price. I mean, I probably can't even pay water and electricity for that amount.
Yeah.
Because it's just so intensive, like for them, he runs my 200 crates in like a half an hour, and I take like 12 hours, like it's just an out of scope.
Anything that would be interesting from your time in Kenya? Yeah,
I think definitely, like the way they split the markets there, Diageo is the normal beer in Kenya, when you remember also, it's a very high price, that the tax is very high in Kenya. But then to overcome the problem with illicit brews, they made this beer with sorghum and sugar called Senator. And Senator is based according, from my understanding, when Obama became Senator of Michigan, they brought out this beer. And then I saw bottles, and I saw a thing after that, when he became president, they tried a pitch with calling it president, but it never went through. That the people like the senator more.
Okay.
And I think this is a very interesting way of brewing, because you use local ingredients, you don't have so much imports. And of course, this one is, it's 100% sorghum and some sugar as adjunct, and they brew a lager out of it. Like it's not a sourish or anything like you think if you use too much sorghum it would be. But it's really then the skills they put in to make such a beer, and also for the health of the consumer, because the illicit brews are a problem there. If you have, instead of adjunct, you have somebody throwing in battery acid or something, then of course it can be a little bit too much sometimes. Yeah, and I think that the time, was really good, because, that was also a 1 million hectoliter brewery, as I said, it was in a bigger scale, and also then the exposure for me, was really nice to have been there. And Then I started from the embedded engineer. Then later on, I became the project manager. Then I decided to make the site management also myself because I knew the site from the time as embedded engineer. And then I also commissioned in the last the extension phase 2, which were 6 new tanks and 6 tanks and then a new cooling plant. Then I did everything kind of like rounded it up myself, which was quite cool, like this. But unfortunately, it happened everything towards the end of the beginning of the pandemic, and then there was plans to join Krones as a freelancer with the same Diageo project, kind of similar Diageo project in Ghana, but that with the travel bans and the stop of almost everything, that came also to a halt.
Okay, and then did you have to go home?
I went in Germany. Then I was looking for employment. Not long, because I know also a lot of people there. So I helped some friends, who do some agricultural business. So I helped them, but it was not, of course, not in my profession. I just did it to be at home, and you cannot. I'm not a person who can sit all the time at home, so I just helped him with the farming stuff, and also the harvest time was there, so we were quite busy. And sometimes he gave me a truck, and I had to bring out the herbicides and stuff, and I drove quite far, and met also a lot of people, farmers and stuff, which was quite cool. But in the background, of course, I applied for positions, and kind of like I wanted them to step back onto this biotechnician, which I did before. So I chased the job as a biotechnician, and now I actually managed to get employment since almost 2 years, 1.5 years. I'm with Roche in Penzberg. So there we did some very interesting cultures. All of them is a GMO modified, genetically modified organisms. And for example, what was very big in the last 1.5 years was a product called proteinase K. So that is an enzyme which cuts the virus's membrane. So for any PCR test in the world, you would need proteinase K to expose the DNA sequence for the PCR test for it to be able to run. And of course, the amount was huge for the proteinase K over the years. And then also we did some other interesting cultures, like for the mRNA vaccine, for example, we have the mRNA, but you need the Hull protein. So we also did some broth, where we produce the Hull protein, and actually these proteins go into the real vaccine for the big companies. Quite a change, first a year ago, like 9 months before, you stand there in Africa and you run a site, you try to get the trucks and then deliveries on site, and then suddenly you stand there like you don't wear coats, but we wear those white jeans and stuff, and doing this. But it was, I think, also a challenging and interesting change. And it's also nice to see that you can also contribute to something.
Yeah, that's not beer, and it's not beer related.
Look, and then on the weekends, I run this pub brewery with my friends there, Schwannenbra, and working for a big pharma or a diagnostic operation, they've put a lot of emphasis in work-life balance. So for me, it's easy then to cut time off from work or to shift things around so that I can also make enough time to brew the beer and stuff. Which hopefully this year, when everything goes to plan, we will have the first year as predicted, like 4 years ago, but yeah, let's hope it stays this way, because now in Germany is summer, and then the beer garden opens and everything. We should have some good sales, not like the years before when everything was kind of like on a full stop.
Yeah. How big is the beer garden?
It's not so big. I mean, it's maybe for 60 people outside, but it's a small village, kind of like pub, a real medieval kind of like vibe, So there used to be a brewery there in the old days, when almost every bigger pub had its own brewing facilities. And the most important thing, I think, is that my friend Marco, who is the chef, and his wife Caroline, said they want to run the pub because that you find hardly people in Germany now these days who want to work in the gastronomic industry. Yeah. Especially on the countryside, like maybe in the bigger towns it's easier, but on the countryside it's very hard to find people. So I think that's why it will become much better. I mean, we had a horrible start. It can only be better.
It can only get better, yeah. Well, Sebastian, it was really nice to catch up with you and to listen to your story. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you too.
And I'm glad that you could connect with everybody at the powwow and African Brew. Unfortunately, couldn't travel there, but I hope you had a good time in South Africa.
No, definitely. And what's great is that we managed to the interview. I was really also looking forward to it. It's quite cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like the podcast. Very nice. Okay, Holger, then.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Take care and then see you.